I have been working in resilience psychology since 2009, when I first started studying resilience at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia. So I'd done all my resilience research. I had just moved back to New Zealand and was doing my doctoral, my PhD research in psychological well-being and resilience. And on an awful weekend in 2014, my beautiful daughter, 12-year-old Abby, was killed in a tragic road accident alongside her best friend, Ella, who was also 12, and Ella's English mum, Sally, who was a really dear friend of mine. So it's 9.5 years ago, so it's pretty easy for me to talk about it now. But what happened at the time was I was appalled by the pathologizing and victimology of the general resources and approach we were given by the experts who came to help us. We were told, for instance, that we were now prime candidates for divorce, mental illness, and family estrangement in week 1. And I was pretty appalled, really, because I've seen, and I'm so familiar with, all of the research that shows that actually the most common response to all kinds of potentially traumatic events, including bereavement, is actually resilience. And so we have this incredible capacity that resides within us to cope with the most unimaginable losses. And don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean it's fun, pretty, or what you want to do, frankly, but it is possible. And I think what happened for me was that because I was so familiar with all of that research, that I had these ways of thinking and acting that were, even in my completely befuddled brain, were still kind of guiding me and suggesting to me what were the things that I could do that might help. And so I decided, as we do in psychology, to encourage people to be their own experiment. And so I thought I would see how much of this resilience psychology that I was so familiar with, how much of it was actually useful and relevant when it was applied to the bereavement context. Because I started looking in death studies and death internationals, which is the awful names of the peer-reviewed publications, and there was just a complete noticeable absence of all of the findings from my field. So it seemed that people weren't looking at strengths and hope and compassion and gratitude and positive emotions and experiences. That there's a large body of empirical, robust science that says even in the midst of grief, it is still quite common and definitely healthy and helpful to experience positive emotions. So I set about basically creating the field that I call resilient grieving, which is applying resilience psychology to the bereavement context. And the first thing I did, I'm a writer really by trade, was I wrote this book that was originally called What Abby Taught Us, because my dear girl did teach us so much, but then became Resilient Grieving. And it's now on its 3rd edition and available globally, and actually about to be sometime next year will be updated in the UK. So we can let you know when that happens.